is that, when Amanda and when you guys brought up this idea about kind of you get out, right, and then it's like what? You have nothing, right? You're starting from scratch,
right?
And I bless you for the people in your life that were able to catch you and able to help you out. That I don't think everybody's so lucky and able to have somebody to kind of help them out until they get to the point where they're on their own.
Right.
But the wild thing to me is that we have all these state supports, right? Mm-hmm. Connecticut especially has invested a lot of money into making sure that people have benefits and entitlements to help them get on their feet.
Right.
And the fact that what we're missing, I think, is someone to help you connect the dots.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? Like someone to be like, hey, Adam, you just got out. We got to, what does Adam need right now to be successful? Well, on day one, Adam needs somewhere to go.
Right.
Like he needs to live somewhere.
That's the first
safe.
issue. Yeah.
There's no reason why we can't put him in his own apartment.
And I think one of the things I've seen across the country that's really lovely and really beautiful is the way the exoneree community does that informally.
Yes.
There really is a lot of outreach. There's a lot of coming together and checking in on folks, supporting in whatever way is possible.
Yes.
And I think, and particularly since we are in Connecticut, and this is a Connecticut podcast, I will say that, compared to the country, Connecticut is really has been a leader on a lot of these things. And this is a spot where I think being able to take that model that exonerees have built informally amongst one another, and then being able to have government come in and kind of fill those gaps, connect those dots is a really, I think, a place where Connecticut could kind of jump head and shoulder above the rest of the country.
Because people are scared when you mention government. Because the bureaucracy, the red tape.
Yeah.
But we need, I believe, to certain degrees, that we need our counterparts lockstep with us moving forward.
Yeah.
And we can make this thing a pleasant step in a direction where it was once somewhat a discourse. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
To whereas we can show that we're here, we understand, and we know the need because we're listening.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I don't just hear you, we're listening.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
And we've seen, the tremendous success that can come out of these informal networks and support.
Yes.
If I may, you're doing fantastic, But to be able to, and you're, not only thriving on your own, you're giving back, you're part of your community.
Right.
And so there's a real benefit. It's important to do this for exonerees, certainly, but it benefits everybody. Guys and girls. Was that guys and gals? We'll go with that. Exonerees across the country are opening businesses, are supporting each other, are powerhouse advocates in their own right, are going to law school. You guys are doing a lot, and with this little bit, it could really, really
with a boost from one another.
Yeah.
Where we can be, you know what I'm saying, within the next 5 years or 3 years is, tremendous. It's like we understand better than anybody.
Yeah.
You guys understand because you have the ear to the street. Your hands is right on the pulse of each an exoneree that allows you to come into their life and get a glimpse of their greatness, their willingness, you know what I'm saying, to submerge you in their life. And it's been nothing but a pleasure to have you guys, you know what I'm saying, in my life. I can pick up the phone and call either one of y'all, I got this problem, or I don't know quite what I should do with this, and you will help me figure out a solution. And that's so important. And then to have the understanding and the set skill of not seeing me just as a previous convicted of X, Y, and Z. Just dealing with me based on my character, how I present myself, and how I just try to move forward and respect everybody, and that's all we can ask for in life.
And I would say, Adam, that's a major factor why the Innocence Project is so successful in the not only in Connecticut but nationwide, but especially in Connecticut, because I work on criminal legal reform with other folks too. Right. But when the Innocence Project comes in, it's bringing this idea that the folks that we're talking about didn't deserve to be there to begin with.
Right.
How did they get there?
Right.
And so we've worked on hard stuff in the Innocence Project, a lot of hard stuff. Let me tell you, and really it depends on the ends where there's like a little bit of difficulty, right? The stuff you're talking about right now about helping guide people, helping get people services, helping get people funding, are there challenges with that? Of course, because the state's going to have to pay up for it, and they're going to have to figure out how to fund it. That's a challenge, but I would say that people's hearts are in the right direction on that, because I don't think there's a single person in that building that looks at it and finds out what happened to an exoneree and is like, I don't want to help them. No, they all want to help, right? The question is how can they help, right? And so I think we've had a lot of success in compensation.
Right.
We've had a lot of success in the award.
Right.
To you this past year.
Yes.
Right, because the people can understand that this shouldn't have happened to you, and we have to make this right? Where it gets harder, right, or which I've seen, is everything else on the other end, right? I tackled deceptive interrogative tactics with the Innocence Project. That was not easy. That was a 2-year bill, and we had to limit it to children. We had to say that you can't use those tactics on children, because that's the only way I could politically get that football across the hurdle in Connecticut and nationwide. I know you guys are struggling with that too, to get it beyond children, but that's, the front end stuff is where it's really, really hard.
So I got a question before you go into your question on your answering, because I get a lot of questions. What is it a bill first and foremost in the works, or is it coming up for the 21 and over for the adults for the age of the mind? You're
talking about raise the age of juveniles so that it's higher.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you, the state senator that you worked with on the compensation bill, Gary Winfield, one of my favorite people in the Capitol. His heart is in the right place on trying to get stuff done. I know that's something that he's been very passionate about. My previous boss, Governor Malloy, was something he was very passionate about. I would love to see legislation on that personally, because I want to see people succeed, and I want a recognition that you get folks a little older,
So
give them a different chance.
Why is it a census throughout the country that the age of 25, you're not an adult to the age of 25, a little bit more?
There's some research that brain development doesn't stop at 18.
Right.
It doesn't, you're not. And I think all of us are over. I don't want to make assumptions. I think we're all over 18.
Pretty much.
And so we all know that you keep changing, you keep developing. 25 is generally when we're all over 25 as well. You keep changing, you keep developing, but 25 is sort of where you can assume most adult responsibilities. If you've ever rented a car, you know that car rental places assume that at 25 you're actually responsible. And the idea that the criminal legal system maybe should follow car rental is one that's kind of taken hold, I think. And I worked on a raise the age bill in New York. It's hard everywhere, but there's some real value in making sure that people who are under 18, under 21, and even in the best case scenario, under 25, are going through the system, a system that's designed to understand neurodevelopmental chronologies to understand where someone actually is and what they're actually capable of doing, what kind of impulse control they can be expected to have. It's a really tough one. There are certainly, it's one that you get it done and you kind of have to keep working on it to protect it. But I think it's something that all states should be thinking about for sure. And I think that's a great thing for Connecticut to take on.
There's a push and pull narrative too, because we're looking at, don't throw the whole book at them, right? They're young, they made a mistake. Let's rectify this mistake, serve their time, and get them out. Let's help folks be successful, right? But there's also the tough on crime narrative that's always tough for people to get above. And, we deal with that in Connecticut, blue state, just like every other state.
Well, because we know, at the end of the day, you do something, you have to, pay the price of what's been done. And it wouldn't be right any other way. But at the end of the day, we also have to have some type of common sense that if a 13-year-old or 17-year-old or 18-year-old child or 21 at that point do something irrational, that they're not beyond the road of redemption.
That's right.
And jail is not predicated on change.
Unfortunately not.
You have to be willing to put that work in yourself outside of the jail, inside of a jail setting, but outside of the day-to-day norms of what's going on as you're incarcerated, and safeguarding yourself mentally, that you don't break to whereas you're no good to anybody, yourself or anybody else, because you can get carried away in the sense of medication. That's a big thing within the walls of prison. Medicaid for mental health issues and things of that nature, when the psychosis is not being properly read, or a person is just trying to feed you more drugs to keep you quiet or what have you. And then you have so many things to whereas you don't have the proper education around what the things that you're taking, that you don't got hurled into. So,
I would say I think it is about having a system that's designed for juveniles, for what can actually realistically be expected, and also recognizing that juveniles are also really particularly vulnerable to wrongful convictions because they're in a system that's not designed for them. So being able to move young people into a system where, when we're talking about deception, that's something that juveniles are particularly susceptible to. So having a system that understands, what kind of guidelines to interrogate a juvenile with, to be able to maybe get to the truth of an event rather than coercing someone into pleading to something they didn't do. Is something that can really, raise the age doesn't speak to that specifically, but by shifting the whole system, you can really attack that as well.
Absolutely.
And on raise the age too, another good policy that actually just this week we had some good news on. I got to work with the ACLU and Senator Winfield and Rep. Staffstrom on Clean Slate in Connecticut, right? And right now our Clean Slate law is, it took a long time to get it up and running. But the good news this week is that records are getting cleaned. It's really happening in Connecticut. They're talking about between 100 and 200,000 people are going to get their records cleaned because they fall under the bill, and they're going to have a better shot at life now.
Now, do they have to write to anybody to get this
it used to
activated?
Be a pardon process. You used to have to go through the pardons process, and they would do a hearing, but the legislature decided de facto that for certain crimes, we're just going to, after a certain period of time, as long as there's no reoffense, we're just going to wipe that clean and give that person a second chance. No process.
Now, what type of crimes? Class A, B?
Mostly misdemeanors, but some low-level felonies were included in the Clean Slate bill. We were one of the first states to include low-level felonies, so it was an improvement. We need to do more.
Right.
We need to figure out a way to clean some more slates so that more people have more of a chance.
Yes.
But that gives you a chance in the real world, right? Because now the criminal record's not following you anymore.
You're hearing it here first, people. That's magnificent. To hear that. Because so many times people are scared to even move about and trying to go about a sense of normalcy because of their previous past and things.
And the pardons process is a process.
It's tedious.
So it's a long
and
process.
It costs money. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And to be honest, it's not intended for the idea of a pardon is supposed to be kind of an unusual event. And often I think in a lot of states it ends up when there's something that's not quite working right. You end up looking to a governor to pardon like broad classes of people in order to make it work. Man. So automatic expungement.
That's great. Now, what's going on in the rest of the country look like as far as good things and things to be on the lookout for?
Well, I would say that we are hoping to be able to focus on both compensation statutes and bringing more services to folks across the country. That's something that we have been hearing from exonerees everywhere, is that is a real gap, and that's something that we want to focus on. There are, I think, 12 states outstanding with no compensation statute.
Man,
that's sad.
So we're going to try to close that gap a little bit, and some of the states that have statutes that need a little work, we're going to try to make some fixes there as well.
I'm glad to say just a little bit that we're working on some things behind the scenes, which is I'm very excited about.
So excited.
Yeah, I just can't wait.
One of the other things that we're working on is looking at emerging technologies.
Yes.
There are an awful lot of surveillance technologies that are coming out faster than we can keep up with them.
It's scary.
Yeah, it's really, it's scary, I think, for folks when you're just walking around, you don't really know who's paying attention, and that's concerning. And certainly when it comes to criminal litigation, it then becomes a real question of where are you getting information from? Is it reliable? Is there, and how can you know that in a courtroom? How can a jury know? How can a judge know? So we're looking at the surveillance technologies, we're looking at AI, we're always trying to keep abreast of DNA changes. It turns out you can, there are always new, more sensitive ways to be testing DNA, so making sure that folks always have access to better testing if it's available and exists.
That's something we're trying to do here.
Yeah.
We have the ability to ask, but we're trying to make it so that you can get it even further along the process. Okay. So even if you're out of prison, you're trying to clear your name.
That's a great thing, because I've known people who said there wasn't no course for them to be able to sustain or exceed no ability for them to retrieve certain materials after being released from prison, which is a crime shame in itself.
Yeah.
Especially if you're trying to just say you're innocent and a wrong will never be right because of some law prohibiting you from moving forward.
Yeah, and broadly, that's something that I think we're always looking at in every state is what are the bars to someone coming back to court when there is some evidence that has not been considered that demonstrates their innocence? Is it something that because they pled guilty, they can't get DNA testing? Or is it something that because, they were released from incarceration on parole.
Right.
They actually did all of their time, but
Right.
they're still innocent.
Don't bury me.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
They're still not able to get back into court to be exonerated because there's a bar in place. You have to be incarcerated. And certainly, we've been talking about all the collateral consequences to a conviction. That still comes into play once you've been released. And if
Absolutely.
you were innocent, that still comes into play.
Are y'all constantly met with resistance in the sense of when you're showing malfeasance on the police part, making false reports and things of that nature, when you set these bills in, trying to straighten the ability for cops to hide behind immunity and things of that nature?
You're giving us the tough questions. I think, we do some work on police misconduct, and in particular, one of the things we look at is ensuring access to police records.
Right.
Because I think, the kind of situation you're talking about, officers who do that usually don't do it once.
No.
And
It's a pattern.
those kinds of records can be really, really important in being able to tie someone to wrongful convictions.
Right.
We've seen in Chicago that, one officer can lead to dozens, hundreds. Yeah, I don't have the exact number in my head, but an awful lot of wrongful convictions.
Yeah.
And I have a colleague, Lori Roberts, who actually did some research on this and was able to demonstrate that in New York, NYPD officers who were who had the highest number of I believe it was of substantiated complaints, perhaps, or complaints in general, were tied to wrongful convictions at a higher rate. Like so being able to access those records can prevent wrongful convictions because you're able to see which officers are doing this, who are the bad apples, and prevent that from happening in the first place. But it's also really helpful on the back end when you're doing exoneration work and post-conviction litigation to be able to see that the officer in this particular case had a whole lot of misconduct that is tied into exactly the kind of case you're working on.
Right. Let me sort of pivot. How about child advocacy? Like the laws, what type of laws are like placed for like fathers and mothers of children that's incarcerated to be able to go visit on a more lengthy period of times and things of that nature?
That is not my area of expertise.
Okay.
And I would say that in general, I think that probably happens through policy more than legislation.
Okay.
But it's certainly something that, we all know that most people who go into prison for whatever reason come out.
Right.
Kids need to see their parents.
Right.
And there's nothing that is more important for reentry, for success after incarceration, than close ties to your family, your friends, your support system.
Right.
So, just based on common sense, you want to make sure that you're putting in place policies that allow for visits to happen regularly, to allow them to be meaningful, and to ensure that they're happening in ways that are driving real connection. That's really something that's going to help kids particularly be successful on the back end.
Right. And your take?
I mean, I know there's listen, we do prisons differently than a lot of other countries, a lot of developed countries. I wouldn't say, all countries, but developed countries. I mean, we've seen European models of prisons where families have way more access to their loved ones who are behind. There's models where, kids are brought into a more safer place where they can see their mothers and their fathers and they can actually have a relationship with them. I don't love the way our country handles the family aspects of prison. I think we've made some strides in Connecticut. My former boss, Governor Malloy, opened up the True Unit in Cheshire, which kind of started this idea that we can have a different way of doing this. Like, we can give people a little more access, we can give them a little more responsibilities, we can make this less a harsher sentence, and because these folks are going to get out one day, and they got to be successful. And so how do we get them to be successful on the inside? I would love to see some modeling in prison that just definitely improves things, because I think we have to accept as a society that a mistake was made. It's not going to fully be corrected in corrections, right? But a person needs to move on, they need to be successful, and society needs to forgive, right? And doing further damage to incarcerated people's families by not letting them see them or not being able to spend quality time with them, that's only furthering the problem. It's not helping the problem.
Man, we can sit here for hours, man. You know what I'm saying? I gotta have y'all back.
Yeah.
Anytime.
I gotta have y'all back. It's been an eye opener, and for the listening audience, I know that it's been a breath of fresh air to get y'all side of your of what's going on in the halls of every state senate and lobby. Gosh, you know what I'm saying? Having people like y'all on the back burners, man, doing the hard work that nobody sees is to be commended. And thank you for everything that y'all do. And thank you for another Locked Up and Locked Out podcast episode. And stay tuned for next season.